there's another story that kind of unsettling. So you know the basketball superstar Caitlin Clark. She is in the Women's National Basketball Association. Big star, huge star, brilliant player. Okay, she's on the Indiana team. Now, 64% of the WNBA is black. All right, Caitlin Clark comes in and is immediately the biggest star in the league. Immediately. And merchandising in every other way. Apparently, there's some jealousy that might be manifesting itself into physical inappropriate conduct. Here's Stephen A. Smith on it. Go.
You got people that are resentful towards her. But it's really not about her, guys. It's about what she represents. Before she ever came along, there were a lot of outstanding basketball players who happened to be black females that was doing their thing on the WNBA level. And they never got this kind of shine. This girl, the Golden Goose, comes along and she wreaks havoc.
Okay, because she's brilliant. Right? That's why she's wreaking havoc. Because she is so good. Now, LeBron James, maybe the best basketball player ever, he's been watching this situation. Go.
You know, there's a very small number of men and women that actually get to live out their dream of playing a professional sport. And we have grown-ass men and women out here doing whatever they can to try to make sure that does not happen. That is the weirdest thing in the world, but it is what it is, and I'm glad that Caitlin has a great head on her shoulders.
All right, just to be clear, Caitlin Clark is being fouled at a record rate. Some of them are brutal fouls, and a lot of the refs are looking the other way. And the women fouling her are doing it on purpose. Now, I can't read minds, but it does have a racial aspect to this. But I could be wrong. Joining us now from England is Sean McLean. He's the founder of Origin Advocacy. He wrote a piece in a Wall Street Journal about all this that caught my attention. Number one, what's Origin Advocacy? What is that?
Origin Advocacy is a Washington, D.C. based consulting and lobbying firm. We help clients figure out how to best engage the federal government.
Okay, so you're basically a consultant to various individuals. Is there an ideology attached to you?
So I worked in government for nearly 15 years. So I'm very limited government. I'm conservative. I worked for Marsha Blackburn, Ted Cruz, and in the Trump administration, including the Trump White House.
Okay. Now, what caught your attention about Caitlin Clark?
Caitlin Clark has had a seismic impact on the WNBA ever since she first joined. Merchandise sales increased over 600%, league app engagement over 600%, subscriptions to the league pass over 400%, and the team she plays for, the Indiana Fever, tripled in value. But despite all that success that she's immediately had, the league has basically looked the other way as she's been targeted on a weekly basis, and that targeting is putting her career at risk.
Well, tell me what targeting means. What does that mean?
So she is taking on harder fouls and at a higher rate than any of her peers. So it turns out that in her rookie season, she absorbed 17% of all flagrant fouls or hard fouls, more than double the rate of any of her peers. This is not something that you would see occur to any other top star in any other league. And I think a lot of fans are scratching their heads of why the league is allowing this to continue, especially given the economic impact that she's having on the league, which they've so desired for decades.
Yeah, but you're not scratching your head, Sean. What do you think it is?
Right after she was drafted and heading into her rookie year, A'ja Wilson, who is a three-time MVP of the league, she's won the championship for the Las Vegas Aces. she came out and addressed the attention that Caitlin Clark is getting. And she said it's absolutely has to do with race. And then, quote, it boils her blood when people try and say that it's not about race. And so, unfortunately, it seems like there's a lot of commentary that's being made by players when they're on camera and they know reporters are watching that show that there is a racial element to this.
Well, the black players don't want a white superstar? Is that what you're saying?
I think as you kind of hit on and in the clips leading into this segment, there's a lot of jealousy and animosity, and that can be understood, right? If you've been an MVP of the league in the past, yet you were unable to achieve the visibility and perhaps the endorsements that Caitlin Clark has received right out of the gate, it shows that it's normal to assume that there would be some degree of resentment. However, the concern is that resentment is then leading to targeting on the court. It's happening at a higher rate for Caitlin Clark than anyone else. And unfortunately, it's creating a textbook hostile work environment for Caitlin Clark. And under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the federal government does have an ability to engage here, should they so choose.
Homeowners, when is the last time you checked on your home title? If your answer is never, then this is for you. Scammers are stealing titles, and your equity is a target. Criminals forge your signature. Just like that, your home title can be transferred out of your name. That's why I partnered up with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Please use my promo code BILL at 24/7 monitor. The federal government should get involved with this because Ms. Clark's civil rights are being violated as she is targeted on the court, the basketball court, and no one's protecting her. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. I know a lot of people say it's sports, that, we should expect hard fouls. And I agree with that. I'm a sports fan. I like seeing competitive play. But unfortunately, facts are stubborn things. And the statistical disparity and the amount Caitlin Clark is being fouled compared to any of her peers in the league, or the treatment that she receives compared to any other top stars in any other leagues, there's no comparison to it. And so she's facing a hostile work environment. Unfortunately, it appears that it does impact a protected class, her race, as evidenced by quotes by players in the league. And there is a federal element here to where the government can intervene. And we've already seen this. The federal government gets involved in sports all the time. We've seen it with MLB and steroids, NFL concussions, USA gymnastics and Dr. Larry Nassar. And even just this past year, President Trump and his administration have really leaned in to fixing disparities at universities and within the NCAA, within fencing, swimming, gymnastics, and has been receiving direct results.
All right, but this is the first time race has really gotten to this level. Why do you think the referees don't protect her more?
I think that's a great question. And I think the one key that, the 17% of flagrant fouls that she receives versus others, that's just based on calls that have actually been, that the referees actually call. The biggest problem here is that they don't call a lot of these fouls that are committed against her. Rebecca Lobo, an analyst and former player, has pointed that out. And so if there's an actual audit of the past season of all the missed calls, I actually think the disparity would be much greater than 17%.
Has any player in the WNBA said that they don't want white girls to be dominant or any kind of stuff like that surfaced?
There's the Aisha Wilson quote, right? The race, it's absolutely about race. There's been other incidents where it's been questionable. So it seems like there is a pattern out there to where race is an element here.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's enough to take it into court on a Title VII, but certainly there should be an investigation because you got the videotape. You can see, as you just pointed out, how she's being roughed up and whether the referees are looking the other way or who's roughing her up. You can see all that. And I think that would be a very compelling evidence. Last word.
I think the point that you just made is key, right? This isn't about an airtight legal case for the federal government, but what the facts do show is that there is a lot of red flags here. Where there's smoke, there's typically fire. And if there is an investigation, and as we've seen in past investigations, Once league communications are reviewed, there may be a lot more damning evidence that comes to light that really underscores what's taking place within the league.
Somebody should look into
Indicates
it.
why they won't fix it.
I agree 100%. Sean, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark, the Department of Justice, and quite possibly the President of the United States himself. Somebody got to say it, so I'm going to say it. But the one thing I will not do is take credit for this. I am looking at the Wall Street Journal. The author of the article is a guy by the name of Sean McLean. Let me read to y'all the opening couple of graphs because I want you to hear the impact of this. This is serious. This is serious. And I could say it with my team here, having the footage and the receipts to back me up. I could be in that I told you so mode. I really, really could. But I ain't going to do that because I'm in a good mood. I'm going to be chill. But I could be saying I told you so. Because let me read this to you. Caitlin Clark has done for the women's NBA what Michael Jordan once did for the NBA. Made it more valuable, watchable, and marketable. Instead of protecting its transformative star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Ms. Clark, treating its greatest asset as if she were a PR headache. That approach could turn into a legal liability for the WNBA. Since she joined the league last year, Ms. Clark's impact has been seismic. Merchandise sales soared 601%. Indiana Fever viewership jumped 170%. The team's value tripled. League Pass subscriptions climbed 366%. App engagement rose 613%. And her endorsements topped $11 million. She's the economic engine driving the league forward. Mystics co-owner Sheila Johnson questioned Ms. Clark's 2024 Time Athlete of the Year recognition. Ms. Clark shattered fan vote records with 1.29 million all-star votes, yet ranked only 9th among guards on the player ballot. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't stop there. Because before I read you some quotes, I want to also read you why I'm saying this to you. Remember when I brought up the 2024 U.S. Olympic roster, how she was left off of that and how stupid that was for Team USA women's basketball to leave her off? Remember I said that? They said this is where they're going now. Ms. Clark's targeting may reflect a culture of disparate treatment, and the evidence provides reasonable cause for a federal probe into potential civil rights violations. Am I making it up now? Remember I said this months ago. Remember I talked about people being jealous. The Cheryl Swoops of the world and others. Remember I pointed that stuff out? Remember I talked about the rough housing? Remember I talked about all of that? Let me read further. This would mirror the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission investigation into the Erica Hamby's pregnancy discrimination claims against the WNBA and her team. Congress and labor and justice departments would be justified in examining the facts. At Harvard and Columbia, during anti-Semitic protests, institutional leaders played down threats and failed to protect students. Congress and Trump's administration demanded answers. Columbia's recent $221 million settlement for civil rights violations shows the effect of such scrutiny. If the Trump administration can settle with Colombia for a $221 million settlement over what's taking place on the campus. You think you can definitively rule out what kind of noise can be made if the WNBA continues to allow this treatment of Caitlin Clark? You really, really think they're going to be silent? Now, before you go any further, I'm not here saying that the case will be won by the government if it got to that point or anything like that. I'm saying they have a case. They have an argument. And do we doubt that at his discretion, at his disposal, if he finds this to be an issue that's politically expedient for him, that Trump won't use this to feed his base? The golden child in her second year in the league, who was top 4 in MVP voting last year, the assist leader last year, a galvanizing talent that has done wonders for the NBA. If she is seen to be physically getting abused on a basketball court in a way that is such a clear and flagrant discrepancy compared to what happens to others, that man is not going to say something? Didn't you just hear Charlamagne tha God point to Trump using issues to evade other issues? You don't think Caitlin Clark could become an issue of national, potentially international, and definitely federal proportions? You don't think so? Let me tell you what kind of quotes Trump would lead on. Sophie Cunningham told the Wall Street Journal, she's Caitlin Clark's teammate with the Indiana Fever, the star player of the league is not being protected. Rebecca Lobo, analyst, ESPN, what does she say? Every single one of those plays against Caitlin Clark has been a foul. Dick Vitale, winning 1.29 million All-Star votes, came in for Caitlin Clark, yet she was ranked 9th among guards on a player ballot. Quote, absolutely pure jealousy that the WNBA players voted Caitlin Clark the 9th best guard. Someday they will realize what she has done for all of the players in the WNBA. Chartered planes, increase in salaries, sold out crowds, improved TV ratings, etc. And they ain't lying. They ain't lying. We're going to go back to what I said. Let me regurgitate my comments. Since she joined the league last year, immediately had charter flights. Merchandise sales soared 601%. Indiana Fever viewership jumped 170%. The team value tripled. League pass subscriptions climbed 366%. App engagement rose 613%. Her endorsements topped 11 million. And oh, by the way, when she was out for the All-Star weekend this year, because she was hurt, by the way, because of the roughhouse tactics all of those folks alluded to, the ratings dropped 36%. They still had over 2 million views, but they had over 3 million last year. It dropped because she wasn't playing. Now, I told y'all, Candace Parker tried to tell y'all, Rebecca Lobo is trying to tell y'all, the goose that lays the golden eggs, the tide that lifts all boats. Do you know what Gino Auriemma said? He said she's being targeted. I don't remember when Michael Jordan came into the league, guys looking to go out and beat him up. Only the Detroit Pistons were looking to beat him up. And then after that, the New York Knicks with Pat Riley and Ewing and Anthony Mason and Xavier McDaniels and Charles Oakley and all of these guys. The John Starks of the world, Derek Harpers of the world eventually, stuff like that. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird knew that Michael Jordan was the future. Commissioner David Stern knew Michael Jordan was the future. The entire league knew this brother was otherworldly. And this is with Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Mark Aguirre, and cats like that in the league. This is with Charles Barkley coming in the league in 85. This is Ewing being there in 84. This is with Jordan being the third pick. 84, I mean, you see all of this stuff going on. This is with Pippen evolving into his own. This is with Karl Malone and John Stockton and these brothers in the league. This is with Akeem Adreem Olajuwon. And Ralph Sampson was in the league. And everybody knew it was Jordan. And what they did, they competed against him. But the roughhouse tactics took place when he went against the Pistons because the championship was on the line. You didn't see all of this stuff in regular season games. And I want to make sure that I'm clear. Some of it, Caitlin Clark brings on herself because she talks, she chirps, she antagonizes. That's how Angel Reese became so famous, because Angel Reese clapped back at her the way she was clapping back at people leading into that national championship loss to LSU a few years back when she was at Iowa. And that's how Angel Reese became famous. So we're not going to sit up here and throw some pity party for Caitlin Clark like she's Miss Innocent when we would be looking to throw everything in the direction of Angel Reese with the vitriol that has been aimed in her direction. We ain't going to do that. But what we will acknowledge is Angel Reese is popular and she's valuable. She ain't Caitlin Clark. She's not that player, and she's not the box office attraction that Caitlin Clark is. That's number one. Number two, because Caitlin Clark is that box office attraction, initially we thought that the league was being jeopardized because if she's not able to play every night, it compromises their numbers, revenue-wise, ratings-wise, attendance-wise, etc. It compromises them. But it gets a bit deeper because, again, the Trump administration has shown it's willing to demand change, proposing federal standards barring men from women's NCAA athletics, issuing sweeping Title VI warnings to more than 60 schools, and launching a Justice Department anti-Semitism task force. Senator Jim Banks' 2024 letter to WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert demanded answers on Ms. Clark's treatment. Congress and the administration should demand answers from WNBA leaders, investigate officiating and internal league communications, hold hearings, and insist on real reforms. This is in a Wall Street Journal. The Labor Department should review the league protocols for workplace safety. If evidence shows discrimination or retaliation, the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division must act. If leaders remain inert, Congress should reconsider the WNBA's special privileges, including its antitrust and broadcast considerations. Checking referees' work with NBA-style last 2-minute reports would be a meaningful first step toward building trust. That was the first salvo. I'm not asking you. This is Stephen A., baby. I'm telling you. It's the first salvo. It's not an accident that this is coming shortly after the WNBA players foolishly wore those shirts. As Candace Parker pointed out, pay us what you owe us, antagonizing the league, with pending CBA negotiations coming. That's what they did. And Candace Parker was like, no, you don't do that when you're trying to get stuff done. You don't do that. But that's what they did. And shortly after that, knowing that the players, because of how the league has grown, because of the collective effort put forth by the players before Caitlin Clark ever arrived, but certainly since she's arrived, the players were making a case of what they deserve and what they earn. And right around the time that happens, now you got the Justice Department and the Trump administration being egged on to pay attention to this issue so it will get addressed. And when you have Senator Jim Banks, a senator, writing a letter to the WNBA commissioner demanding answers on Caitlin Clark's treatment, yes, ladies and gentlemen, it could be politically expedient. Yes, this could be all about feeding the MAGA base. Yes, this could end up being much ado about nothing. But it's not. Because a CBA negotiation is imminent and will be ongoing. And those players that are talking about their value, what's going to be held against you is looking at your value when Caitlin Clark is not playing. And when you see a precipitous drop off, it ain't going to be about y'all. It's going to be about her. Even if it's wrong, even if it's unfair, that's how it's going to go down. And when it goes down like that, that's exactly the kind of ammunition that the president will use to his advantage as he so sees fit. People are speculating what he's doing with Epstein. As Charlamagne said, he went after Beyonce. He goes after, he mentions P. Diddy. He mentions Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama and Barack Obama and now him. Anything to divert attention away from the Epstein files. So says Charlamagne to God. Well, in this instance, the latest evasive measure that appears to be on the verge of coming into play is the president using treatment towards this golden goose, a spectacular talent that is one of the preeminent futures, if not the future face of the WNBA, if she isn't considered that already, in Caitlin Clark, who also happens to be white, playing in the Midwest, with evidence of unfair treatment. They tried to use arguments like this when they were talking about DEI. Now they're going to have it for this. You think he won't use it? You think the president won't use this as advantage? I got a better question. You think it won't work? White America still makes up 57% of the population. Caitlin Clark chirps she goes off all the time. I don't mean chirping in a negative way. I'm just talking about athletes talking smack to one another. I ain't hating on it. I love it, actually. It's no big deal. But she does it, no big deal. Barely goes unnoticed. But 17 flagrant fouls have been called against people for beating up on Caitlin Clark. That's practically double what's happened for any other player in the league. They have evidence to say she's being treated unfairly. Even though I think it's just basketball and I think allow them to be competitive and they prefer for competitive juices to flow. I'm not talking about what I feel. I'm talking about the argument that this administration and this Department of Justice can make. You already saw the senator sent the letter. You think that's an accident? More's coming, y'all. Caitlin Clark gonna make national news. Caitlin Clark is going to be politicized. It's coming. I can smell it. And you see how big my nose is. I can smell it. They politicized Colin Kaepernick over kneeling for the national anthem when he never interfered with anything from kickoff to the final buzzer, final gun sounding. Never interfered with anything. Just took a knee during the national anthem. Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, was sitting on water coolers, eating a banana during the national anthem. They didn't say anything. But Trump wants to politicize Colin Kaepernick years ago. And that was because he had something against the NFL owners who wouldn't let him become owner of the Buffalo Bills back in 2014. This, a young, star, white young lady, getting beat up on a basketball court in their eyes? They're going to try to make that more profound than Kaepernick. WNBA, you've been forewarned. You got to address this. Kill this noise now. Make sure you do what you got to do. Last 2-minute reports from the referees. Emulate that from the NBA and institute that immediately. And start ejecting people if their behavior is too excessive. Against everybody, not just Caitlin Clark. Have a consistent policy. Don't make them find evidence that this inconsistency that's disfavorable to Caitlin Clark. Oh, there will be hell to pay. Based on this story right here, it's the first salvo. It's not an accident that this was put out now. The timing couldn't be more perfect for Trump and the Justice Department. It's not an accident that's coming out shortly after they wore those shirts. and while a CBA negotiation is pending. It's not an accident. My last words. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it ain't a damn mongoose. Open your eyes, y'all. Open your eyes.
We have to deal with the possibility that the Indiana Fever right now, in this moment, are better without Caitlin Clark. And that sounds crazy, and people are saying, how can you say that? I'm saying it because we're seeing it. And people have been very upset when anyone ever floats out like, hey, there's some things Caitlin Clark should be doing differently and could be doing better that would help this team. And we've been seeing it over the course of this 5-game winning streak. On Sunday, they went out to Seattle and knocked off the Seattle Storm. And it has raised the possibility, for those of you that are longtime sports fans or remember the great days of Bill Simmons when he was writing columns, Bill Simmons used to always talk about, part of his shtick was the Ewing theory. The Ewing theory is something that Bill Simmons wrote about in 2001. 2001, am I right? Yeah, 2001. And it's been famous ever since. And the theory is, wait for it, where is it? I wrote this down myself. Bill Simmons argues that a team may play better after losing a star player who receives a lot of media attention and fan interest, but hasn't led the team to a title. What has transpired here with Caitlin Clark? She's been fighting injuries all this year. She re-aggravated her groin injury. She's been out the last 7 games. There have been content creators, and this is where I'm going big picture and where all these other things that I'm going to talk about in this show, they're all going to connect to this. This matrix that has been built over YouTube and over social media. And there's been a controversy around the Indiana Fever all year that's kind of come to a head. People talk about Indiana Fever fans, and they brought a toxicity and they brought a darkness to the whole Caitlin Clark WNBA deal. Most of that is 1,000% misguided. It's most of it. But there is an element of truth to it. And I started talking about this last week. Started talking about it basically on Friday. Like, hey, there are 2 groups of Indiana Fever fans. There's a group of Indiana Fever fans that want to see the Indiana Fever play well, and they enjoy Caitlin Clark. And then there's a group of Indiana Fever fans who aren't Indiana Fever fans. They're Caitlin Clark fans. And all they want to see is Caitlin Clark win an MVP, shoot logo threes, prove that she's 10 times better than Angel Reese, and they really don't care about winning or losing. Those 2 factions are at odds with each other. And there's a guy in Indianapolis, I think his name's Scott Agnes. He covers the Indiana Fever for Fieldhouse something or other. He's got a YouTube page, and he puts out content over social media. And he started pointing out recently, like Friday, Thursday, last week, like, hey, there's a darkness that comes with the Caitlin Clark fans. And the Caitlin Clark fans have melted down. And they're all upset. And a lot of them are YouTube content creators, social media content creators, that their entire following, and again, I'm sympathetic to these guys. It's going to sound like I'm beating them up, but I'm sympathetic to them. Their content, traction, views, everything is dependent on a Caitlin Clark narrative. Caitlin Clark proves X, Y, and Z. Caitlin Clark, Fever can't win without Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is better than Angel Reese. Everything is built around what Caitlin Clark did. If they just have to talk about the entire team, there's less clicks, there's less views, there's less traction. Their relevance goes down. And this is the problem with social media, with YouTube and these algorithms. They control what people say and think. You're now a slave to your audience. Oh, if I inch anywhere towards the truth, if I question, and I've experienced this. I experienced it last season when we were getting all this traction and attention off of talking about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever and that phenomenon, when I would occasionally say, hey man, Caitlin Clark and just jacking up these logo threes and Caitlin Clark and all this whining and flopping and arguing with the refs. Anytime I offered up any criticism of Caitlin Clark, and I'm sure it's happening right now, anytime I offered up, we would lose subscribers. People would flee our YouTube page. How dare Jason Whitlock say that Caitlin Clark shouldn't whine to the referees? Doesn't he know those black girls are mistreating her? Doesn't he see that they're beating her up and the referees are horrible? Yes, I see those things. Doesn't mean you have to give in to it. And it doesn't mean that Caitlin Clark's whining about the referees isn't affecting the rest of the team. This morning, when we were preparing for the show, we were debating, like, hey, are they better without Caitlin Clark? And the way Caitlin Clark currently conducts herself on the court, there's an argument to be made that yes, they are. And I know that sounds crazy and it sounds offensive to some of you. And it's not a shot that Caitlin Clark can be the WNBA MVP. She can be the best player in basketball. She can be the most exciting player. She can be a force for good. But if certain things aren't eliminated, she undermines the basketball team, the Indiana Fever. And people, what do you mean? She leads the league in assists. If they just hit all the layups she sets up for them, she makes everybody better. Caitlin Clark is the best female passing basketball player I've ever seen and one of the great passing basketball players I've ever seen, regardless of gender. It's not that she's a selfish player, but there are things Caitlin Clark does that undermines the Indiana Fever. And there are things beyond helping someone get a layup that elevates your teammates. I'll give you an example. Caitlin, if you've been watching, and if you watched yesterday, and if you've been watching them during this winning streak and playing without Caitlin Clark, the team is less involved with the referees. They're not whining and complaining. They're not worried about things that they cannot control. When Caitlin Clark is on the court and she is constantly berating the referees, you know who follows her? Aaliyah Boston. You know who follows her? Sophie Cunningham. The next thing you know, two of their most important players, they're bickering, arguing, worried about the officials. The whole team, the crowd, the energy is wasted. In sports, in life, control what you can control. Trying to control the referees, you can't control them. What you end up doing is creating animus from the referees where they start picking on you because they don't like you because you're a spoiled, bratty team. And also you've distracted your teammates from focusing on the job of just playing the game and letting the referees ref the game. If you watch the Fever without Caitlin Clark, they're more focused. If you watch the Fever on the defensive end, they're more focused and more committed. Caitlin Clark spends so much time thinking about the offensive end of the court and when's her next logo three gonna fall, that the team ends up following her lead. And they're less committed on the defensive end because Caitlin Clark, and she has admitted it, she rests on the defensive end way too often. because she tries to conserve her energy for the offensive end. She's always had to do that. The offensive load was on her in grade school, junior high, high school, and in college because her teammates weren't that good. And so smartly at Iowa, in high school, in junior high, in grade school, she rested on the defensive end and just outscored people on the other end. Well, now that she's in the WNBA and she's got other players, teammates who can get buckets, she doesn't need to rest on the defensive end because she's not as necessary on the offensive end. I said not as necessary. I didn't say unnecessary. But she's overly focused on the offensive end, and that the team follows her lead. She's the most dynamic female athlete we've ever seen in the WNBA. People follow her lead. Her teammates follow her lead. And a lot of times with the whining with the refs and with the lack of attention on defense, she leads them straight to hell. Like what you saw? Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.
This Caitlin Clark saga just gets stranger and stranger. I just find Caitlin's entire second season just inexplicably baffling. Think about this. She had played 185 straight games through college in her rookie WNBA season. 185 straight without missing one because of injury. And now this season, she has missed games 4 different times with various leg pulls, including the last 7 and the All-Star game and the All-Star weekend in her house in Indy. And there's no timetable for her return from this groin pull, so the team says. And don't look now, but her Indiana Fever have won 5 in a row to rise to 17-12. That's 5th best in the league. And yep, I'm sure her critics, many of them veteran WNBA players, are now rolling their eyes and saying, "Told you, overrated." Not so fast. The Fever were 8-5 with Caitlin Clark, and they're now 9-7 without Caitlin Clark. Hey, you put Caitlin Clark back at the controls of this team with this depth, and the Fever could win it all. They could. They could win it all. 15 games remain before the playoffs commence on September 14th. So the clock is ticking, if not running out, on Caitlin Clark. But of course, if she did return, and she did take over this team, and she did take it on a deep playoff run, that would have to be a healthy Caitlin, healthy physically, healthy mentally. And I have no idea what is really going on with her body or her mind. Is it possible that this time she tore her groin so badly that she's already been privately ruled out for the rest of the season? Yet the league wants to keep the media and the fans in the dark about this so that people keep tuning in, figuring, oh, she'll be back soon. Is that what's going on? Maybe. All-Star game ratings were down 36% from last year when she did play. This year, no play. This year, she played assistant coach and bench cheerleader throughout the game. And I'm here to tell you, if she hadn't been actively participating in her street clothes role as the bench coach and cheerleader, I'll swear those ratings would have been down another 10%. I know I watched in part to just see how she was reacting to what was going on the court. When it comes to box office and Nielsen's, she is her. Undoubtedly, inarguably her. But what I can't figure out is which came first, the chicken or the goose eggs in her three-point shooting columns. Did all this start, stop from all these injuries just derail her rhythm, her shooting rhythm, and pretty soon her confidence? I mean, I'll say it again. Caitlin is mired in an awful slump. She's 2 of 35 from 3 on the road so far this year. Overall from 3, she's shooting only 27.9%. That ranks 61st out of 62 qualified three-point shooters in this league. 61st out of 62. She's making only 36.7% from the floor, which ranks 57th in the league. She was a 91% free throw shooter last season. She's down to 82 this season. What? Now, she is second in assists per game in the league, but here we go again. She's a runaway last in turnovers per game. But you know what? I have a hard time watching these games without her. I'll still watch the Fever quite a bit. I watch the fourth quarter Sunday. But I'm watching in part to gauge how she's reacting to their ups and their downs. How she's coaching, she's cheerleading. Then again, I have wondered out loud if maybe Caitlin Clark has taken a couple of injury breaks just because she needed a mental break from all the jealousy, all the resentment, all the on-court bullying and cheap shots she takes, all of which might have just overwhelmed her and helped send her into a shooting slump. But I'm just speculating from a distance. I don't know. I just know that Caitlin Clark's second season in this league that she is fueling, is getting curiouser and curiouser.
What Caitlin's done in the last 4 years, is just mind-blowing. The way she's taken her popularity, her fame, and really moved the game forward. But the thing I love the most about her is she loves the game of basketball. She works at it. She plays at a level that no one has reached yet in the WNBA. So, to me, I think she's going to take this league as far as she wants to.
Taurasi, thank you so much for being here, and it's a pleasure having you in the studio.
Thank you.
I'm excited to talk some basketball with you, and of course your new docu-series with Prime Video called Taurasi, which helps to kind of chronicleize your journey helping to revolutionize women's basketball. And I watched the docu-series. It's fabulous. You should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you.
I can imagine it probably brought up a lot of memories, a lot of reflection for you. So how was this process in making this?
Yeah, it was an amazing journey. I was a little hesitant at first to do it. I've always been a little bit private about my basketball career, and it was always close to my heart because it was my story and I wanted to keep it close. But I thought it was a cool story to share to everyone where women's basketball was for the last 20 years and the ups and downs of, being a professional athlete in this country, especially in the WNBA, and having to go overseas. And, it was pretty interesting to go back and relive some of the moments that I really had put, on the back burner and stopped thinking about, and to relive all those moments again. It was really emotional in a lot of those, different scenes.
For people who maybe are just if they're just now hearing about you, learning about you, what do you hope that they take away from the doc more than anything, fans and naysayers?
It was a long-lived basketball career. I think sometimes fans just see a little slice of your career and they think that's all of it, but I kind of lived in the generation where we had to go overseas. We played in the WNBA, played in the Olympics. It was a full-time career job for me. It's the thing I loved to do the most, and wherever I could play basketball, that's where I was going. That was my #1 objective, for a long time in my life.
Your freshman year at UConn, I loved learning about that and kind of seeing the younger you. How important was that rookie year for you at UConn and developing you into the player you ended up becoming, and your experience with Gino and the girls on that team?
Yeah, that's when I think basketball got really
Hello, it's your favorite sports thunk here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the fan. Hey guys, it's your favorite unk here. Go ahead and click that subscribe button below so you don't miss a single episode of Nightcap. That button right here. Come for the sports, stay for the stories. Caitlin Clark had another monster game. She had 28 points, 12 assists, and a 193 win over the Dallas Wings today that pushed the Indiana Fever.
As you know, I love watching Caitlin Clark play basketball. A whole lot of people love watching Caitlin Clark play basketball. She single-handedly made the WNBA a thing, a national thing, even though the older stars still don't want to believe or accept that. And now, right before their very eyes, they're rolling at Caitlin Clark. Just as they want to be paid for what they're owed, thanks to Caitlin Clark, the coach that took them to the Cinderella's ball, I'm talking about the transportation coach, Caitlin Clark's coach, as in transportation, as in buggy, is turning back into a pumpkin right before their very rolling eyes. What a strange, strange saga this season has turned into for Caitlin Clark. And of course, I have my theories. She had played 181 straight games from her college years through her rookie year last year. 181 straight without an injury. 181, that's a lot of games, no injuries. Then, she missed some preseason games with what was announced as left leg tightness. Then she missed 5 regular season games with what was announced as left quad strain. Then she missed 5 more regular season games with what was announced as left groin. Now she has missed the last 2 games, regular season games, along with the 3-point shootout and the All-Star game in her house, Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, where she was reduced to being, of course, a coach/cheerleader. She's missed all that with what was announced as a right groin. And she's still iffy as the league resumes its regular season games. So I've gone back and watched the play on which she, according to the team, pulled her right groin. That came with 39 seconds left against Connecticut up in the Boston Celtics house. And the play just looks so routine to my eyes. There's no awkward slip or fall. She makes a sweet little feed to Kelsey Mitchell, breaking free down the baseline for a layup. No doubt Caitlin's the best passer in the W. But as she turns to trot back up court, she grabs her right groin. Then she goes and lightly bangs her head against the far stanchion in frustration. Then she goes to the bench and covers her head with a towel in abject frustration. Now, Caitlin did take a fall a little earlier in that game, but she was able to keep playing with no sign of any groin pull at all that I could see. I don't know. So that's 4 leg injuries in 2.5 months. After playing 181 straight games with no injuries, you've had 4 leg injuries, soft tissue injuries in 2.5 months. Now, I'm not talking about a knee injury, not talking about a shoulder. Thank God we're not talking about the dreaded Achilles issue. But still, I can't help but wonder what is going on here with Caitlin Clark. So this all made me wonder if maybe Caitlin got so tired of all the ungrateful resentment and all the petty jealousy that she finally said, okay, let's see how you do without me. I have no proof whatsoever that that did happen, but I did wonder if that were happening. I mean, did you see what Kelsey Plum said at halftime and then after Saturday night's All-Star game? At halftime, she strongly made the point in an on-court interview that her team was going to pour it on Team Clark because her team was so much better than Team Clark. Then afterward, she was sitting next to Sabrina Ionescu of Team Clark, who played for Team Clark, and Kelsey Plum, who played for the winning team. They won, 151 to 131. Kelsey Plum said, the idea to wear those pay us what you owe us t-shirts came out of a meeting that Saturday morning. A meeting, said Kelsey Plum, that, and I quote, 0 members of Team Clark were very present for. A remark a clearly surprised Sabrina said, with sort of a forced chuckle, was not needed to be mentioned. Ha ha ha. It sounded like Kelsey Plum was taking a shot at Caitlin Clark for not being that interested in fighting the league for more money because she, Caitlin Clark, makes so much off the court. Man, this league has now so many veteran divas in it that nobody ever watched before Caitlin Clark arrived. These veteran divas are now so full of themselves because they've actually deluded themselves into believing they're at least as big a draws as Caitlin has become. What they all should be most worried about right now is that their golden goose, Caitlin, is ailing. Caitlin just keeps pulling things and missing games. She's missed 11, played in 12. And missing games has prevented her from finding any kind of shooting groove or rhythm. I'm not going to lie about this. I'm not going to gloss over it as big a fan as I am of Caitlin's, but she is in an all-time bad shooting slump. She's now shooting 27.9% from three. That ranks 56th of 57 qualified players in the WNBA. Even more horrifying, Caitlin Clark is now 2 of 35 from three on the road. 2 of 35, that's 6%. What? Allstate Insurance won't love hearing that. You've seen the new commercial from the logo. From the floor isn't much better right now. Caitlin is shooting only 36.7% from the floor. That ranks 56th of 62 qualified in the league. And while her 8.8 assists per game is second in the W, her 5.1 turnovers per game are by far the worst. Angel Reese is second, way down at 3.8 to her, Caitlin's 5.1. Whew. The Fever actually, as you probably know, won the Commissioner's Cup championship game without Caitlin Clark. So the leading vote getter in the All-Star game is, cold hard truth, having a terrible season so far. In fact, it has been so bad that sometimes I've wondered if maybe she took a few games off just to give herself a much-needed mental break. I've wondered that. I mean, you realize there's a 30-story poster of Caitlin Clark, her going up for a jump shot, that covers the entire east side of the JW Marriott in downtown Indianapolis, a poster you can see from anywhere in downtown, maybe from a mile outside downtown. So talk about pressure, and on top of that, so many veteran stars try to get physical with her, try to bully her. Man, Caitlin Clark has had a rough year. But all I know for sure about the WNBA is that it had better get Caitlin Clark physically and mentally healthy or risk sliding right back off the national map. I'm sorry, I'm just being honest here. I find it difficult to watch WNBA games without her on the floor. I did watch most of the All-Star game on Saturday night, mostly just to see how she would react as an unofficial coach. But guess what that game turned into? All the other players tried to be Caitlin Clark. That's what happened. From the logo. The league had put in circles alongside the logo for 4-point shots. You had to have your feet inside the circles alongside the logo to get 4 points. And even the post players were launching them. I'm sure agents were telling all their players before the game, these are the shots that made Caitlin famous. Launch them. It's just an all-star game. It was hard to watch.
Listen, man, you guys dropped Big 3 again. This is a new season. I remember you famously made an offer to Caitlin Clark, but what about Angel Reese? You think she could ball out? You know, she's pretty solid, you know?
Yeah, she's a great player. You know, the thing with Caitlin Clark, it was just to unlock millions of dollars for the league because of her stardom, what our sponsors was telling us.
Right.
They didn't tell us the same thing about Angel Reese, so I don't know if we can make that same offer.
I see. So, maybe an adjusted amount?
I think we can make that same offer because it won't have the same impact to the league.
It's all smart moves. I see you. That's what you do.
No.
Yeah.
Well, person.
This is the new season. What are you most excited for? Like, maybe some new players or some new opportunities?
Yeah, we got some great players. Lance Stevenson, Dwight Howard. It's great. Wesley Johnson's been great. Montrezl Harrell been great. The league has been, it's been must-see TV for sure.
Yeah, it's getting a little testy. I saw some of those guys going at it. Mark Walters, do you think he could change the Lakers page like he did with the Dodgers?
Got to give him a shot. It's not about what I think. It's about, him execute. He was able to execute with the Dodgers. So I'm confident he can execute with the Lakers. So we'll see.
Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. Big game tonight in the WNBA. You can check it out, CBS Sports Network. You're going to have to stay up a little late. It's not starting closer until 10 Eastern. However, we're talking about the Fever at the Sparks. Now, the Sparks have already won the first 2 matchups. They were on the road. They're back at home. The Fever are getting it done, though, without Caitlin Clark. Can they do it on the road tonight? And a lot of playoff implications as we continue throughout the season. So let's welcome in our Ty Carter here. Let's talk about the Fever first. Look, they have won 5 in a row without Caitlin Clark. And if you ask the players, though, Sophie Cunningham has been speaking out about this. This is not anything about Caitlin Clark. Obviously, they're better with her, but look at us gelling without her and how well we're starting to do.
Yeah, and also their head coach, Stephanie White, has also said something similar in that regards where it sucks to not have Caitlin, right? But it has showed the resilience that her team has and how they've been able to click. And then also the Indiana Fever, they become very hard to scout because you don't know who's going to be the one to go off in a game. And we can use, for example, their win over Seattle on Sunday. Kelsey Mitchell, she's been leading the group in scoring at 19.5 points per game. This is the most that she has averaged in a season in her 8-year career. But when you look at it, it's been other people who have been able to step up. Aaliyah Boston was just named the WNBA Player of the Week, and Natasha Howard on Sunday was the one who led them with 21 points to the victory. And so it becomes very difficult for teams to say, okay, who is going to be the player in which we have to stop tonight, or players? And so I think it's made them dynamic in that sense where they have become a little bit more difficult to scout because they've had their top 3 in Natasha Howard and Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston who have been able to put up some dynamic numbers. But then also the supporting cast like Sophie Cunningham is knocking down a 3-point shot as well. And so I think for them it's been more about a team thing and making sure that they're coming together at the right time, and which we're seeing right now, as opposed to them thinking about the fact that Caitlin has been out.
So take us through the rest of the season, since they are doing so well, because we're just a little bit more than a month away from the beginning of the playoffs here. They're in fifth place overall in the standings, but they're only a game and a half back of second place. It is very, very crowded. But given what you've seen over the past handful of games, when they get Caitlin Clark, how high do you think they can jump in these rankings?
I think it will fluctuate over this next month, if we're being quite frank. The last day of the regular season is September 14th, and so we're getting there into that point. We're about almost a month out from what that will look like. And I think between the top teams, we've seen the New York Liberty, they have fallen these past few games where they just haven't been themselves. The Minnesota Lynx, maybe we'll see a fluctuation from them because Nafisa Collier is going to be out with that ankle sprain that she has for the next 2 weeks. And so I could see them jump as high as 3 or stay at 5, just due to the fact that, yes, it's crowded and you see they're only one game out of being in that third place. But within that, the other teams still have to play. So I could say anywhere up to third and between 5 over the next month of the season. I think it's going to flip flop back and forth, to be honest.
What about the Sparks, though? Look, I mean, obviously they're down further in the rankings here, but they have had this incredible turnaround, 7-1 in their last 8 games after starting the season 6-14. I think in their overtime win against the Storm, they had like 4 players score 20 or more points. What has started to work for this team?
Well, this team has found themselves, and they also got bodies back. So when we think about their 6-14 start to the season, they missed a heap of time without Rakia Jackson. Ray Burrell was also injured. She had a high ankle sprain that saw her being out. And you see here that they've been able to find a groove when it comes to the rhythm and the scoring of the basketball. They are one of the top teams in the WNBA in pace and points per game. And so what we've seen within them is the fact that they know that they have these players who can put the ball in the hole, and they've been doing that at best. And so I think for them, it was just all about getting bodies back into the fold and then finding their chemistry.